Corporate finance, just-in-time inventory. Don't make business decisions by chance. Instead, use corporate finance. Just-in-time inventory. In a prior presentation, we took a look at inventory management in general, first breaking out different types of industry by inventory needs. For example, types of companies that don't have inventory, service companies, would be in one category. You have another category of company that might be a merchandising type of company. They purchase inventory, then they sell the inventory, and then probably the most complex item with regards to tracking the inventory, those being the people that produce the inventory. They make the inventory, therefore have raw materials. Then they have the work in process, and then the finished goods type of inventory. Now, we have some counterplay then between the production level, how much we want to be producing, how much inventory that we're going to be wanting on hand, the cost of holding on to that inventory, and then having a limited type of production and possibly ordering costs and whatnot that are going to be related to the ordering of the materials and the inventory. So there's going to be some question as to how much inventory we want to have on hand. Some types of industries may be subject or be able to put in a just-in-time inventory system, which is designed basically to limit the amount of inventory we have on hand and could limit the costs then in that way. But of course, it does add risks in some other ways. So this would be subject to particular types of industries. One company that's done this fairly well would be like Dell computers. When you order, say, a Dell computer and they basically put the thing together, you can put together a custom computer, and then they get all the parts basically and put that computer together in, say, a just-in-time inventory system, as opposed to having a bunch of computers that are going to be basically pre-set up that you can put in place. Other examples might be such as a burger place, like an In-N-Out style burger place, instead of having burgers that are under the heat lamp. More burger places these days, of course, are doing the just-in-time system where they take the order and they put the assembly line together and put the food together basically as you go. So requirements for a just-in-time inventory system would then include production that can continually satisfy the customer demand. So in order to have a just-in-time system, you got to make sure that you have the production that's going to be there to meet the demand that's going to be coming into place, of course. If you're thinking about computers, for example, you got to make sure that you can produce the computers that are going to be ordered throughout the year. And part of the reason that you might then have inventory buildup is to meet the demand. Most of the time, prior to a just-in-time system, or people that don't use a just-in-time system want to have the inventory on hand so that they can then sell it when the customer has the need for it. The just-in-time system is going to limit that, or is going to remove the processing of the inventory, possibly the storing of the inventory, streamlining the process. But of course, that means that all the links that go through the production of, say, the computer, especially for a more complex type of system like a computer, have to be there so that you can put it together quickly to meet the demand. Good links between suppliers, manufacturers, and customers. So again, if you're talking about something like a computer or something like that, it used to be that, you would have thought you can't really do that in a just-in-time system and sell a whole lot of the computers, because if you get custom orders for it, it's going to take a good deal of time to get the parts from different areas. And so the more complex item or thing that you have, the more different suppliers and manufacturers that you're purchasing from in order to construct something, the more variations that you have in the thing that you're constructing to create some kind of customization, the more difficult the just-in-time system can be, and the better links you have to be able to rely on the supplier. If I need a particular piece that needs to be given to me very quickly as I put together my computer, and it's from a separate company, I've got to have a really good relationship with them so that they give me that stuff on time as the orders come in, and I don't have any breaks with the chain of command. Obviously, with the chain of the production chain, the supply chain that's going to happen. If you're dealing with something like a just-in-time in a burger place or something like that, then obviously if you have everything in the burger place and you got the assembly line that's going to be taking place, it takes a little bit longer to make the burger that way, to cook it and make the burger. You got to have everything there. But if you're not ordering the burger outside of the company, outside of the store from the supplier at the point in time that someone purchases it, it's going to be a little bit easier, hopefully, at that point, even though it might take a little bit longer there as well. But the more complex the system you have, the more you got to have a good relationship with the suppliers and be able to ship that information quickly to meet the demand and get the inventory out quickly. Inventory levels at their minimum, that's going to be one of the major goals that you can have with this. If you have a just-in-time system, then you can keep the inventory levels down, and that could reduce costs greatly. It can also reduce the cost of obsolescence or a spoilage or something like that. Computers, for example, are things that could go obsolete fairly easily. And if you got a whole lot of computers in your warehouse, once they've become obsolete, then that could be a lot of waste there as well. If you could put in a just-in-time system, then you're less likely to have that situation take place, and you're reducing the inventory costs. Also, you could add possibly a level of customization that couldn't be there otherwise. If, for example, you have to have a certain level of computers to meet needs, then it's more likely that you're going to have a production system. It's kind of like the Model T car. They're all going to be black cars. They're going to look exactly the same because you're trying to meet the need of most people, and you want to have the inventory on hand to meet that need. If you can then customize or put the thing together as you go, you could probably come up with a little bit more variations into it, do some more custom orders as long as you have the good links with the suppliers to do so, and possibly put more variants to meet particular customer needs, which again, that can give a lot of value in particular areas depending on the industry that you're in. Advantages of just-in-time inventory system: reduces warehouse space needed for reducing storage costs. So one of the big advantages, of course, reducing the cost of storing the inventory. Reduced overhead expenses for things like utilities and manpower. So once again, if you don't have the warehouse and whatnot, you got less utilities that you're going to be dealing with, you would think. Could reduce costs related to quality control, and it could reduce waste in things like the warehouse costs and things like possibly inventory that becomes obsolete over time. Problems with the just-in-time system: if there are a problem with any part of the production cycle, it can result in lost sales. So, and this was one of the big concerns before the just-in-time kind of took hold in a lot of different areas, is that, well, you can't have a just-in-time system with something that's so complex, like, say, a computer or something that's going to be more complex and has many different parts that are going to be bought from many different areas, because if there's any problem in any of the supplier lines, it's going to mess up the whole process for just-in-time system, and any sales that you would have during that component could go down. So once again, you have to have really good, reliable components that you're going to be dealing with. You have a good relationship with the vendors. You trust the vendors that they're not going to be going bankrupt. They're solid vendors and whatnot, so that you can make that work, and that will become more or less important, again, depending on how complex the thing is that we're putting together. It is more difficult to keep up with unanticipated increases in sales. So it's going to be more labor intensive, or the people that are putting together the process are going to have kind of a more complex process to put the thing together as they go. And if there's an increase in demand, it's going to be more difficult to meet the increase in demand, because again, if there's any problem on any of the supply components, that they just don't have the necessary parts to meet the increase in demand, then that's gonna cause a problem in the whole production, the whole production line. Whereas if you just had a bunch of Model Ts, in the warehouse, or if you had a bunch of computers that you had stored away, then you can meet that need a lot easier. Although, of course, then you would have to deal with the cost of storing it and the obsolescence and all that. So always there's going to be a trade-off of the cost-benefit analysis.